I just be personal. It's PTSD for me anytime there's one of these shootings, because the worst day of my life was the shooting at Virginia Tech. And so when there's a Sandy Hook or a Pulse nightclub or the shooting in Las Vegas or Dylan Roof in Charleston or the shooting in Buffalo, but maybe particularly when they're shooting at schools, I just kind of relive the worst day of my life. And I was thinking about this last night and trying to analyze my own emotions about it. And what I realized is that the kind of emotional, just feeling kind of ripped emotionally, is not just the shootings themselves, which are horrible. I mean, these little kids, and here they are, they're 2 days away from the end of the school year. These two teachers who, by all accounts, are really beloved. I mean, the shootings are bad enough, but what really makes it sting is the realization that Congress has done nothing. I mean, Virginia Tech shooting was 15 years ago. At that time, that was the worst mass shooting in the history of the United States. It isn't anymore. It isn't anymore. There have been other shootings that have eclipsed it, that have broken that just horrific and unimaginable record of 32 people killed on the Virginia Tech campus. There have been a number of instances where more have been killed. But the fact that Congress hasn't done anything, I just have such a hard time fathoming how a U.S. Senate, because the House has acted. There are 2 bills that have passed the House that would make our country safer in terms of dealing with gun issues, but we can't get to 60 votes in the Senate on this. I think we should be able to do this with a simple majority vote. But I don't have colleagues who are yet in agreement with me on that. And so a traditional Senate rule that is being abused in my process requires to get to 60 votes, but we should be able to get to 60 votes. I remember the vote we had on background checks after the Sandy Hook shooting. I had just been in the Senate about 4 months. I think the vote actually happened on the anniversary of the Virginia Tech shooting, and the Sandy Hook parents were in the gallery, and many of the Virginia Tech parents had came up to sit with them just to offer them support. And we fell short. I think we got 57 votes that day. We couldn't get 60, and I just felt like, how could a body that calls itself the United States Senate, the greatest deliberative body in the world, see a shooting of this kind and decide the right answer is we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything. I was really troubled by this last night. I was just trying to look for, like, how do I make sense of it? And 2 things occurred to me. One as a bit of a, I don't know, a little bit of a spiritual refuge, and then one in the more policy, don't lose hope, keep plugging. The spiritual one was something that Pope Francis said a few years ago, not related to gun violence. It was during a year where he was encouraging a lot of activity by parishes around the world. And he said that parishes, but this could also refer to people or politicians, should be islas de misericordia en el medio de un mar de indiferencia. Islas de misericordia en medio de un mar de indiferencia. Islands of mercy in the middle of a sea of indifference. That's what we're called to be. And I thought it was interesting when I heard him say that at the time, that he didn't contrast mercy with cruelty or say that mercy was surrounded by hatred. He said it's surrounded by indifference. Cruelty will exist. Evil exists. Hatred exists. But those things usually are not powerful enough to really do damage unless there's also just mass indifference. And that's my critique of Congress when it comes to these shootings. During the entire time that I've been here, during the entire 15 years since the shooting at Virginia Tech, the Senate has betrayed a spirit of indifference. We can tweet out our thoughts and our prayers, and prayers should be unceasing and are required at times like this, but that's not enough. And if that's all you do, then you're indifferent. And I'm trying to find reason to believe that a body that has been known by its indifference could change. So here's the second thing. Can we change? Virginia has. In the aftermath of the shooting at Virginia Tech, I could do the things that the law gave me the power to do as governor via executive action. I couldn't get the legislature to do anything meaningful about guns. We could do things with the legislature about mental health. We could do things about campus safety protocols, but I couldn't get the legislature willing to do anything about guns. My legislature was enthralled to the NRA, which is headquartered in Virginia. And the NRA is enthralled not to gun owners. The NRA is basically a front for gun manufacturers. And gun manufacturers, their philosophy is as many in whatever lethality to whoever, whenever, in whatever quantity. I mean, that's what gun manufacturers want. And gun manufacturers basically run these organizations, and then the organizations have unusual and disproportionate sway over politicians. So that was where Virginia was, even after the shooting at Virginia Tech. But we're not there anymore. We're not there anymore. After the elections in 2019, Virginia enacted a series of common sense strategies to deal with gun violence. And those strategies are proven strategies that are making us safer and that are going to make the future a little brighter and a little more secure for Virginians. So while I'm still somewhat in despair about the attitude in the Senate about this, if we can do it in Virginia, we can do it in the Senate. If we can do it in Virginia, we can do it in the Senate. So Mark Warner and I have a bill that basically just took the bills that the Virginia General Assembly passed, and we call it the Virginia Plan, and we've introduced it in Congress. And that's background record checks to make sure that somebody getting a weapon is legally authorized to obtain it, a little tighter scrutiny of weapons sold to folks who have been involved in domestic violence or have issues where they've been adjudicated mentally ill and dangerous to others. I support limitations on the size of magazines in these weapons. Somebody with a gun that has a limited magazine can do a lot of damage, but oftentimes what you find is as they're reloading, that's when law enforcement or others can stop them. And I think limiting the size of magazines that can be sold or used in a weapon, again, won't eliminate these instances completely, but it will reduce the number of deaths. I would support a ban on assault weapons. Also, why should an 18-year-old be able to buy weapons of this lethality and ammunition in the quantity that he purchased? So there's a number of things that we can do, I believe, and particularly background checks. Background checks is if you just could do one thing, the one thing that would likely do the most good would be comprehensive background checks. A working comprehensive background check system would have meant that Sung Wee Cho would not have been able to get the weapons that he used to kill people at Virginia Tech. And in many instances, that's the case. So there are policies that work. Virginia's one handgun a month policy worked for many years until the governor who followed me scrapped it. I'm glad Virginia legislature has restored it. It reduced purchases of mass quantities of guns in Virginia that were then being shipped around and used in crimes everywhere else. So there are strategies that work. None of them, just like a seatbelt doesn't eliminate every death in an auto accident, it just brings down death rates and keeps people safer. There's no change we're going to make that will eliminate every instance of gun violence. So the question isn't, will it be foolproof in eliminating all gun violence, but we can dramatically bring gun violence down. And some of the states that have had policies like these that Virginia put in place have seen that happen.